Hi there, I'd just like to pick up a conversation I was having about breastfeeding and its potential positives, and talk about the gut biome and its relationship to early cognitive brain development in children. There was some very interesting research that came out yesterday from Carlson and al. Rebecca Nickmeyer at the University of Carolina. And this came out in a title called Biological Psychiatry, which is a magazine in America. Anyway, this work is increasing the relevance of the research that's coming out now about which links the gastrointestinal microbacteria composition to the cognitive development outcomes in children, even the brain volume size. They find this is an interesting study because it's the first time it's really been connected through past animal studies into actual studies with humans, and they have linked and made a connection between the development of the gut biome, which is the bacterial makeup and diversity in 1-year-old babies. If they're retested for cognitive development at 2 years old, they found significant difference in those who had a more proliferated gut biome. They seem to not pick up this idea that there's a diversity of all the different types of bacteria in the gut. That didn't seem to be as important in young children as it does when you get older. It seems to be how specific groups of bacteria cluster and co-function together. They kind of connect and cluster in groups which kind of work together like a community. It's very interesting that as an adult, we have about 1 kilogram of bacteria in our gut, in our human intestine. This seems to increasingly be understood as acting like a kind of virtual organ in terms of immune function. Very, very important. It's in relationship to the development of brain health. And this has been identified for some time as one of the hottest areas in medicine. There's in UCC in Cork, there's a doctor called Timothy Denan who runs the research centre there, which is one of the leading places in the world in researching this gut biome. It seems that the first year is the foundational growth for this microbial colonization of the gut. But the link here is with the brain is at the very same time. This is a hugely important time for the development of the brain. It's where the brain fires and wires and synapses and connects and forms networks and myelinates, which is kind of the sheath, the fatty coverings of the brain, which make these nerve pathways function much, much more clearly and pristinely. The interesting thing for us is, and as parents, is how do we maximize the biome, the gut biome? And there are certain foods and substances that can be taken in, prebiotics, probiotics. The first thing and the most important thing, as I've talked about before, is there is a significant difference in the gut biome of a breastfed baby versus a bottle-fed baby. Now, this is actually more in terms of particular groupings. It's not necessarily to do with diversity, because actually in some bottle-fed babies there's a bigger diversity. It's to do with actually how these different groups link up and connect, and not necessarily diversity. Another really important thing that's been found, of course, is vaginal delivery needs to be encouraged. Caesarean sections link directly to a decreased gut biome in children, and this is hugely important. Vaginal delivery, what happens is when the head goes down through the vagina, there's a huge amount of natural bacteria in the vagina that the baby gets washed with, and it's in relationship to their skin, and it's in their mouths, and it seems to form a natural basis for the development of this gut biome and this gut flora, so much so that it's becoming increasingly fashionable. If someone is due an elective cesarean, people will take vaginal gut bacteria cultures and grow them and plaster them on the baby when they're born, and I think that's a very good idea if you can get round to that. Ideally, a vaginal delivery is the best. Other things that are important, of course, are to minimise the use of antibiotics in the first year, which are used a lot, but the doctors are waking up to this actually more with regards to the development of superbugs and resistance to antibiotics. But actually, you take an antibiotic and it kills a huge amount of the diversity of the gut biome. So we should minimise the use of antibiotics except when absolutely necessary. I think that's very important. Also, this use of antibacterial cleaners. Everything is antibacterial hand washes, antibacterial clothes washing, antibacterial washing up liquid, and cleaners for surfaces. These, I think, are having an eroding effect on the natural gut flora. Some of the most wonderful ways of getting natural gut flora is kids being out in nature. Soil is a very important source for these natural, healthy bacteria. And so it's almost the opposite to having a super clean house. It's I'm not advocating a dirty house, but I'm advocating kind of more of a real existence where children are allowed to be out and sit on the ground and play around with the mud, etc. a little bit. A more naturalistic way, I think, seems to link up. This is, for me, a very interesting area when we're working with children, especially with autistic children. And, the gut dysfunction and gut dysbiosis seems to have a big effect on the brain functioning. And if you can normalize to some degree the gut bacteria and the gut function, it seems to help free up their nervous system. So I think it's an area which is going to be increasingly used in the future, and something that we're really paying a lot of attention to in our work right now. Okay, I wish you well.